Well, thank goodness it's no longer continuous coverage of Hurricane Irma, but we're all working on the aftermath at various locations here on the Treasure Coast. With us, State Representative Larry Lee. And Larry, welcome aboard.
Glad to be here, Greg. How are you?
Doing fine. Well, I'll tell you, we really dodged a bullet.
Yes, we did. I tell you, Pastor Ted Rice saw me a couple of days prior to the hurricane in the bank. And he said, Larry, hold on for a second. I want to speak with you about something. And it's an interesting story. And he said, I talked to the man up above, not just me, but a group of pastors. And we meet every Tuesday. We're biracial, multi-denominational, and we pray every Tuesday. And he told us that the storm is going to turn away from us. I said, okay, Ted, I'm taking your word for it. He said, no. I laughed just like you. He says, no, I'm serious. He said, last year, this same group of pastors, Matthew was headed toward us. And they prayed, and it went away. So I'm watching the television, and as the reports, we get near Cuba, it starts veering to the left. It kept veering to the left, and I thought about what Ted said. And so after, the eye went over the West Coast rather than the East Coast as it was predicted at one time, I said, I didn't ask Ted this, but I'm going to ask him when I see him because I think I know the answer. I said, I'm surely, I believe, I'm almost certain that people in Naples and Collier County and Fort Myers, they were praying also. Why did it hit them? And then I guess something said, well, Sunday is one of the most segregated days of the week. And maybe they were praying individually, and this group was praying collectively. And I'm told that down in the island of St. Kitts, they say they did the same down there, and the storm went around them. So maybe,
no way.
Maybe it's just that God is trying to tell us we need to come together,
get together, sure,
and not just thinking individually.
I love it.
That's your sermon for the day, Greg.
Hey, it works for me. Nuts and bolts, though. Comcast is still saying that they have some serious issues at some of their operations. They've got about 12,000 people without cable. I know the Rio area was really hit hard. But tell us a little bit about, St. Lucie County, obviously. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you grew up here, but
yes.
Carol and I got here in '93, and we've been through a lot of hurricanes.
Yes.
But the preparation and the response has been mind-boggling.
Well, Greg, I know I've been getting calls, and there are some isolated areas in St. Lucie County where people still don't have power. I just spoke with someone today, and they were very upset that they are being told that their power will not be restored until Sunday. And I told this person, you're extremely blessed and don't know it because your house is dry, you have no damage, your cars are safe, no damage, you were not injured, and there are people over in Fort Myers and Collier County.
Sure.
They are not going to get power for up to a month. It's up to 6 weeks in some areas where people are going to be without power. And you're complaining about Sunday. So, but there, I had an update, and I've been staying in close contact with the Fort Pierce Utilities Authority and Florida Power and Light. And the report that I got this morning from FPUA, there were 23,282 people without power in Fort Pierce. And as of this morning, there were only 409 customers without power as of this morning.
And as of 5 o'clock today, it's 222.
So they're cutting it. So
it's amazing.
It's amazing. And then you take FP&L. The very first day, FP&L had 120 plus thousand customers in St. Lucie County without power. By nightfall, that number was down to, after the storm that is, down to 88,000. The following day, it was down to 59,000. So they still have some isolated areas. And one of the problems is that these grids, the way these grids, my house, my power came back on my house somewhere around 24 hours after it went out. But my office was
Yeah,
down.
in St. Lucie West, we didn't have any power
well,
problems.
Well, we had I lived over in PJ Village, and
Mm-hmm.
we had my whole street was out. But like I said, it didn't stay out a full 24 hours. I guess it came back on somewhere. I was at work. I came home and it was on, but
Sure.
it went out that night. So it wasn't a full 24 hours, and it got back on, which I was happy and surprised. But my State Farm office, it was off for a couple of days. It came back on Tuesday night because Monday it was out, and Tuesday it was out, and I guess around 6 o'clock Tuesday. So it was out a couple of days. But I have proposed two bills to help in situations like this, because the first night that I drove around, I wanted to see what the city looked like in the dark. And I did it in Port St. Lucie and Fort Prison. Port St. Lucie looked a lot better light-wise, but there were a number of areas that were completely dark, like Virginia Avenue. There's a walk-in clinic. It was dark. Then I drove over on Delaware. In Delaware, it was dark. And, of course, the Florida Community Health Center is over there.
Sure.
So they had no power.
Right by the
from
historic
there.
school,
Right.
yes, yeah.
And so I have proposed a bill that's being drafted right now that will require, once the hospital, they receive priority. Once the hospital is re-energized, then they must go to these community health centers and these walk-in clinics, because just imagine if you have massive injuries and
Sure.
sickness, and the only place that's open is the hospital, you're going to have that hospital emergency room just overflowing with people. However, if these community health centers had generators and the walk-in clinics,
Mm-hmm.
then that would take the load off. So we're preparing a bill now that will require going forward all community health centers and walk-in clinics would have to have a generator, and that would alleviate people not being able to get medical care after a disaster such as this.
That's phenomenal. Well, I mean, look at what happened after 2004. I guess the public supermarkets all went with
Yes.
generators,
Mhm.
gas stations.
Yes, gas that became law with gas stations now.
Whoa.
You know, and that's another thing too. We had a major fuel problem, and see, these ports were closed, so they couldn't get the ships in. But I must give it to Governor Scott, and I think you and I talked about it. I don't always agree with him. He and I've had some differences, but I must say he was out front of this thing all over the state, and making the resources available. And when gas, people that were evacuating the area, they had the Florida Highway Patrol escorting tankers in from other states to bring fuel.
That was impressive.
Yes.
That was
And-
really
and
impressive.
Greg, I tell you something else that was impressive. The Emergency Management Operations Center out by the fairgrounds.
Yes.
Ron Parrish and Howard Tipton, my hat's off to those guys. I spent several days, about a day before and several days after, out there with them. And that was something to see, where you would see every governmental entity, the head of the school board, the head of the utilities, all these people sitting in it. It looked like a war room, and they were monitoring. You had all of the experts there, and then they had a map that showed all the things. So they could tell you where the flooding areas and things like that was. And we had a situation. I got called out to Timber Lakes Estates. There's a subdivision on Angle Road going toward Pantherwood Country Club.
Oh, yeah.
And they were flooded so bad. I went out there with one.
That's west of Kings Highway,
West
right?
of Kings
yeah.
Highway.
Yeah.
And my Tahoe is an SUV, and I couldn't get in there. The water was that high.
Whoa.
And so I came back and spoke with County Administrator Howard Tipton. And what happened out there was there were 4 pipes that were, they thought initially that it was a pipe out there. The canal, Belcher Canal, was higher than the development, and they thought the water was coming back in to the subdivision that was draining. It has 3 lakes. The lake in the back drains into the middle lake. The middle lake drains into the front lake. The front lake has a culvert that takes the water over to Belcher Canal. Now, what it looked like was happening was, it looked like as though the canal was dumping water back. But what we found out later, after we further investigated it, there were 4 culverts that was moving the water, and only 3 of the culverts were open.
Oh.
So that means the water couldn't get out as fast.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, we had a lot of issues with drainage, and we should learn from this, but we got to do a better job moving the water, because we had some bad areas. You know what happened over at Sabre
School
Chase.
board.
With school board, I think that's history now, because I doubt this has happened almost every time we've had a major water event. And I think that it's time the school board, as well as the supervisor of election, all governmental entities, move out of that development. And right down the street was Sabre Chase apartment. You had over 120 families in there got flooded out. And I'm going to give a number for those people, or any of those people that's listening, or you have family members over there. They're eligible to receive FEMA assistance. And that number is 1-800-621-3362. And I'll repeat it again. So if you don't have a pencil or paper, get one, and we'll repeat it again before.
And we'll have it here at the station too. Yeah.
And also, if you have any questions concerning this hurricane, you can call my legislative office at 595-1391. Again, that's right here locally, 595-1391. And Tangi Jennings and Mary Alice Bennett are my legislative aides, and they'll be able to assist you. If they can't answer your question, they know who to talk to in the federal government, as well as the state of Florida, to get an answer to your question. And if I might, Greg, talk a little bit about insurance.
Sure.
One of the things that you need to know is you should have, if you had any damage to your house or your car, you should have reported it by now. But if you haven't, make sure you do that right away. And don't, because mold can start occurring in your house. And I'm surprised. We've had several claims, and I had 2 people who reported their claims yesterday afternoon, and the adjusters were there today. So
wow.
Basically they're moving. They have what they call levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if it's one of the top levels, say level 1, you're going to get immediate attention if your roof is leaking. And then also I want to talk about scams, in particular for senior citizens. One of the oldest scams that occur when these types of things happen, some of these people go out and get them a little metallic sign made up and stick it on their pickup truck, go to Home Depot or somewhere and buy a bunch of blue tarps. And they come in and they tell you, and they sometimes even have a false license on that little metallic sign. They tell you that they're in your neighborhood doing an assessment. We see your house has been damaged. So what we want to do is get you on our list, because once we get to 100, we're going to cut off and start doing it, and we're getting pretty close. So if you would like to get on the list, you give us this deposit, and we're going to, for right now, we're going to keep the water from coming into your house. We're going to put this tarp over your house, get you on the list, and we'll have our crew out here by next week.
That happened in 2004.
So
sure.
you got to watch that, and they prey on the senior citizens. And if you are feel that you're a victim, you call the St. Louis County Sheriff Department, and if you feel that there's someone out there trying to take advantage of an elderly person. And one of the good things, Greg, that I've seen in this whole process, I have seen America at its best. I've seen so many people reaching out to each other, and I just thought, man, why can't we be like this all the time? Why must it take tragedy or a disaster to pull us together? But I am just so impressed with how I'm seeing people helping people who they had no damage to their property. They are looking at their neighbor and trying to help their neighbor. People at that Sabre Chase, how people were helping those victims who were victims of the storm move their furniture and belongings.
Yeah, and those poor people. I mean, all of a sudden you say, you come home,
Mm-hmm.
Say you've been out of town, and you look and your residence has been tagged.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, you've got to get out.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yes.
Just an awful situation. Now, FEMA will be opening a center.
Yes.
Is it Fenn Center?
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking it was going to be IRSC, but so they will be opening, according to this release from City of Fort Pierce, within 3 to 5 days.
Yes. And I'm very impressed with FEMA because when we were out at the Emergency Operations Center, one day, because I would go home late in the evening and come back early in the morning. Some people stayed out there. I think Howard Tipton and the rest of them, they had beds out there. John Shaman of Channel 5 News, John had an air mattress.
He lived there,
he
yeah.
lived there,
Oh,
out
yeah,
there the
yeah.
whole time. But and they were reporting live from out there constantly. But one day I was going in there and I saw these FEMA trucks. I bet you it was 30 or 40 of them lined up getting ready. And when they moved out of there, they moved out in a convoy. And then I remember I got some calls from some residents in Fort Pierce, and they felt that the lights were not being turned on fast enough. And the problem there was this. Fort Pierce UA was limited. This problem was so big, and they had a contractual agreement with Michigan. And the next morning, well, that night, it was Monday night, the crew from Michigan rolled in with their trucks, and it was about 20 of them. They came all the way down. They drove all night from Michigan. They come down, and FP&L, in preparation for this event, they flew in 1,000 people from California over to Lake City.
Pacific Gas and Electric, yes.
Had them ready to be dispersed. This was the largest power company mobilization in U.S. history. And when you look at that storm, it's the largest storm. That storm, when the eye got toward the middle of the state over on the West Coast, the top of that storm was all the way to Jacksonville, and the bottom was still down by Miami. That's how big the storm was. And ultimately what happened, it affected Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina.
Sure. It was really, we had some friends at CBS television, and one called, and he said, I'm whizzing by your radio station now. He said, they have repositioned us from the Keys to Jacksonville. I said, Jacksonville? Why would you go there? Not even realizing the St. Johns River was about ready to overflow.
And it did.
And it did.
It overflowed.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, I don't know how you feel about global warming, but do you think that global warming could have anything to do with this?
Yeah.
I think we better wake up because, see, I believe our planet is trying to tell us something. They had a diagram of Hurricane Andrew and a diagram of Hurricane Irma.
Irma.
It was like 5 times the size of, and if that's, and those poor people in Cuba, I feel for them, but had it not hit Cuba, we would have gotten the fire. That thing would have been much stronger.
Oh, yeah.
But when it went over, and it was interesting because many times the storms will hit the island of Hispaniola, Haiti, and Dominican Republic, and all the mountains would break it up and weaken it.
Oh, 6,000 and 7,000 foot mountains.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what happened with this storm, it was almost like an NFL running back. It was just dodging all the islands with mountains. And then it was going through that strait, and it caught a little bit of Cuba, and that's what weakened it a little bit before it turned north.
Yeah, we dodged a major bullet. Now, as far as schools, IRSC is back on Monday. St. A's, John Carroll, and the school districts, they are all back. I did not see St. James Christian Academy, which is in where the school board was, although there's no water in that, in that parking lot now. I'm going, where in the world did that go?
Well, and they had pumps out there, and they were pumping. I don't know where they pumped it, but they had pumps going out there the very next morning, huge pumps. But I was speaking with Chris Fogel, local CPA, and he was helping to get some of the other academies to take on some of those students. They were placing them in different schools. Greg, I would like to mention some of the things, and I'm quite sure the people would like to know this. If you're eligible for disaster assistance, these are some of the things that will be covered. Temporary housing, lodging expenses. For instance, if you had to live in a hotel while your place was being damaged or you had evacuated. Lodging expenses, of course, home repairs if you didn't have any insurance, and you have, cleanup items, the moving and storage, like those people who were out at Sable Chase that had to move their furniture and
Sure.
not store it. FEMA can give you some assistance, and if you just call that number, 1-800-621-3362. And Greg, for those business owners out there, you and I are in that category. I, along with Representative Keone McGee of Homestead, we started talking Monday morning about filing a bill and requesting, well, actually not filing a bill, but making a request to the governor to ask the President of the United States, Governor Scott asked President Scott to recommend to the IRS to give extensions to business owners who had to file their September 15th quarterly estimated tax.
Sure.
And Senator Bill Nelson and Senator Marco Rubio joined in with us. And actually, I found out after we started pushing this, it wasn't anything new because Texas had done it also. And so if you are a business owner, and today is September the 15th, by the way, and your estimated taxes are due today, don't sweat it, because the Internal Revenue Service ruled that any county in Florida that was designated a disaster area, your taxes that were due September the 15th and January the 15th of 2018 is being extended until January 31st of 2018. So if you didn't get your taxes done today, don't sweat it. And that also goes for those people who have filed for an extension. If you file for your taxes was due in April, your extension runs out October 15th. You got an extension until January 31st, 2018 as well.
And as Tom Kidron mentioned in our IRSC show last night, the SBDC has got bridge loan programs for you, and feel free. Give them a call at the IRSC at the SBDC office. They've got emergency bridge loans for equipment, and it's very easy to apply. And of course, if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to call Tom or go to the IRSCBiz.com website.
Yes.
And that'll have all the information on all of this SBDC stuff. And if you're a business person, and I know Carol and I utilized the bridge loan in 2004, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, the South Florida Water Management is still closing one of the big boat ramps for recreational types down by Clewiston. And they said until the lake hits a certain level, they will not reopen that. And I'm sure all of us were concerned about that lake holding up.
Well, the Corps, they lowered it, I think about 5 feet or so before the storm. So that helped by lowering that lake. But we just need to be so thankful here on the Treasure Coast, particularly here in St. Lucie County, and let this be a lesson to us all. If you don't have flood insurance and you live near a low-lying or flood area, you should buy it. It's best to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And the other thing is those people who have automobiles. A lot of times people want to lower their insurance costs, say, well, my car is paid for, I don't need all this insurance. Well, keep in mind, if you cut that comprehensive coverage off your car, that's the part that covers a flood.
Ooh.
And actually, it's one of the, when you look at all the items that you're being charged for, about 8 or 9 of them, you have your liability, your property damage, your comprehensive, your collision, your uninsured motors, your medical payment. When you look at all those coverage on your policy, your comprehensive coverage is one of the cheapest ones you have.
Wow. Good to know. Good to know. We got a list from the folks at Visit St. Lucie. And go to their website. It's visitstlucie.com. And Charlotte and the whole gang have got a list of hotels in all of the counties on the Treasure Coast that do have some availability. If you've lost your residence, and it's really good. It's visitstlucie.com, and just head to that website. And the one thing that of course, Cliff Desmond picked it up right away. Technologically, you guys in the EOC, with your briefings on Facebook.
Yes.
So, who came up with that idea? That was really a good idea.
I tell you, I was just a willing participant, but I got to give all the credit to Ron Parrish, who's the director of the Emergency Operations Center.
You bet.
And Howard Tip. They got an awesome team, and Howard and that whole county administration over there. We have a great group of people there at the county. And yeah, we have our problems sometimes with things not always going smoothly. But tell me what organization doesn't have a glitch now and then? But that was just one well-oiled organization.
Mm-hmm.
And even the sheriff, we were talking tell you about that incident at Timberlake Estates when I went out there and I couldn't get in because the water level was so high. And there were people out there that had automobiles that couldn't get out. And I had one of my friends, Gwen Morris, who lives out there, and she called me the next morning. She said, Representative Lee, I am just so happy. You even had the National Guard out here. And I say, Gwen, that wasn't the National Guard. The Sheriff's Department, they got these Humvees.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
But she thought the National Guard, but they came out there to try to, if anyone needed to get out, go to the store, whatever, get out of their property because they had a car. They drove through there checking on the people. And Sheriff Kim Mascara and Chief Diane Hobby Bryant, I can't thank them enough too for what they did.
You guys were amazing. The way the whole county did come together, and I'm not turning my back on Martin County or Indian River County as well. It just seemed like the advanced preparation on this, especially at your level and the state level, was just out of sight, as it was in Texas. I mean, it's truly amazing.
And I was on a call today with the Speaker of the House and several members of the legislature, and we're probably going to be in the next few days convening a special session because we know we're going to have to allocate some funds. There are a lot of people out there hurting, and when you look down in the Keys, man, 25% of the homes there were totally destroyed. 25%. Just imagine.
No, I can't.
I had several clients that didn't have houses done, but they had their cars, and they left. They came back, and their cars were underwater. The water had receded, but destroyed their cars. So it's we just truly blessed here. But we were prepared, but this was a learning experience, and we'll be even better prepared the next time because hurricanes are going to continue to come. And I would like to leave with this, Greg. If you had damage and, on your policy, you have two deductibles. You have a regular deductible and a hurricane deductible. Usually, your regular deductible is, say, $500, $1,000, $2,500. That's your regular deductible. But your hurricane deductible is a percentage. It could be 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%. So let's say you got $1 million house. You're deducting, you got a 10% deductible. That's $100,000 on that. So, but the point that I'm going at here is this. You might say, okay, I looked at my policy. My house is valued at $100,000. I got a 10% hurricane deductible, so that's $10,000. I only got $5,000, so I'm not even going to file this claim. No, file that claim anyway because we're not out of hurricane season. The hurricane deductible is an annual thing. So if you get hit by this hurricane and you file that claim, it's like in the bank in a sense that you had a hurricane loss, but it didn't hit your deductible. So next time you will be able to say, okay, I had $5,000 on the other because it's a calendar year deductible, unlike your regular deductible is an occurrence.
Wow, amazing stuff. Well, it's tough to say congratulations, but really it is, and express our thoughts when you see Ron and even the governor. I mean, I was amazed, and the governor trying to do briefings in Spanish and stuff. I thought that was great, and the extra step that you made here is that your briefings were also in Creole. Very important.
Well, Creole and in Spanish. We had it in both.
Yep.
And, thank Chief Harvey Burney. She had a Creole interpreter there.
Yes.
And County Administrator Howard Tipton has a guy on staff that speaks Spanish. And each one of them, at the end of their presentations, I told the Creole guy, I say merci beaucoup, and which means thank you, and then the Spanish guy, gracias. So that's about all I knew, you know.
But it was great, and you all did just an amazing job of keeping us informed so we can keep the public informed. And Larry, try and get some rest, huh?
Yes. Greg, I'll leave with this. Teamwork makes the dream work.
There you go.
And that's what we had.
Doesn't get any better than that. So long, my friend. Larry Lee, our state representative, here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. The talk of the Treasure Coast. We're going to catch up with a little bit of Tom Sullivan here. And hopefully this will be our last hurricane wrap-up of 2017. Good night, everyone.